你好，好久不见，还是好久不休. Either way, nice to see you all again. It's been a while since I've had a combat commentary. I have been busy with a few things. 我很忙, as the good folks in China would say. Speaking of China, so China has a bit of an issue right now concerning their traditional martial arts. Yeah, I'm kind of being a dead horse in a sense, but I'm all about solving problems, right? So you've got this MMA fighter going around, taking challenges from quote unquote traditional kung fu masters. Some are Tai Chi, some are Wing Chun, etc. You get the idea. So, and this guy's basically kind of curb stomping them into, the meat you find in your favorite jiaozi, or dumplings, as they say in English. So, with that said, one of the things I've noticed with these gentlemen is, specifically the Tai Chi guys, is they're not doing the things that they need to do to be, good at combat. And yes, Taijiquan is a combat art. Well, what things do you need to do to be good at a combat art? Well, you need to spar for one, you need to fight, you need to basically train for battle. And so I'm here to list things that you can do specifically with Taijiquan to make your combat with it that much better. Okay? Right? And see, here's the thing that a lot of folks got to realize, that war or combat in general is chaos, whether it's with your hands or a sword, guns, sticks, stones, etc. Right? So here's how you can make your combat skills better quicker. And one thing that folks gotta realize about styles is that not all styles are created equal. And I don't mean one is better than the other. What I mean is certain arts take longer to get good with, to be proficient with. Right? So like you can learn to box, Queensberry Western style boxing, and you could be proficient in combat in like 6 months, right? Karate, traditional Okinawan karate, I give or take 1 to 3 years. Yeah, you'd be pretty badass, right? Well, Taijiquan is a whole nother animal, because you are basically learning how to strategically yield and draw in your opponent and set them up into almost like a booby trap to where they can't get out of, right? This is what you do with moves like small catch and hit, single arm circle, cloud hands, all that. So to get to the point where you're looking like Tiger Chen or Jet Li, or what's his face, the one who gets killed and everything, the Sean Bean of kung fu movies, Wu Jing, yeah, that's his name. You want to look like them with your Tai Chi. You'd be like Man of Tai Chi or Taiji Boxer or whatever. You've got to start with your fundamentals, i.e. principles. So first and foremost, you've got to work on your structure. This comes from doing standing meditation, i.e. you're finding what is known as Peng, rising energy, expanding energy, yada, yada, yada. You are finding your synergy. You must develop your structure. So alignment, right? So you see my knees, they do not go over my toes. My elbows line up with my knees. I sink into this part of my hip known as the gua. From here, I can use what is known as inch power, right? So that means I ain't got to rear back and throw a punch. And so they have a saying in Tai Chi, soft overcomes hard. It only takes 4 ounces to divert 1,000 pounds of force. Well, to do that, first you gotta figure out your synergy. You've got to also figure out your structure. And then you've got to figure out how to move into your structure or stay within your structure while you're moving, right? This is where, things like silk rilling comes in. This is where forms comes in. And forms don't necessarily make you a better fighter per se. Forms give you essentially a textbook way to do things. But here's the thing. I'll say it again. War is chaos. Things are not going to go exactly like they do in the form, right? So for example, I love to play video games, and I especially love fighting games. And a lot of times, the AI, the higher the difficulty you get, they're gonna have the same amount of moves that they've always had, but they're gonna do them in trickier combinations and rapid succession, things that you aren't ready for. They're gonna do reversals more so. Got any Tekken fans out there? Yes, I love Tekken. Lei Wulong, Martial Law, Jin Kazama, Kazuya Mishima, Heihachi Mishima, etc. Right? So, easy mode, they're going to hit you with the basic combos, if that, or just a single strike. Max difficulty, master mode, they're going to have basically 10-hit combos and reversals, and they're going to stay on you. They're not going to give you breathing room. They're going to throw you into walls. They're going to juggle you. All the things in Tekken that's going to do, right? So you've got to be able to adapt to the changing circumstances of a fight, right? Okay, so, and how did I come to this conclusion? Well, yesterday I was in ninjutsu class, ironically, and I was practicing a grappling technique for knife defense against, one of my classmates. Shout out to Jacob Beck. He kind of inspired this. So what he would do was he would, throw a punch and I'd grab his hand, but then he'd do something else to try and divert to see if I could still get the technique off on him, right? And this is a controlled, practice session. This is not like a street fight or whatever. So a few times, I got wrecked. I fully admit that. There was another time where I actually I stopped his move and then did the same move or turned it into another move, right? So you, as my shout out to my traditional martial artists, you've got to be able to think outside the box, because not every fight is going to go the way you think it goes. This is what basically went into Bruce Lee's the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, right? And the Tao of Kung Fu. And speaking of which, right, Bruce Lee himself got into a lot of street fights. And this is how he came to this conclusion. You have to fight. And, okay, so you have your silk rilling, you have your forms, you have your standing meditation, and developing your structure, right? You practice that. But sometimes that's not enough. You got to do push hands, right? You do push hands, and don't just do push hands with the same person. Do push hands with different people from different styles of Tai Chi, because not everybody does Tai Chi the same. There's Chen, Wu, Yang, Hunyin, Sun, etc., right? And even then, that's not a guarantee, right? So don't just do the standard push hands like they do at the ICMAC tournaments. Oh, we're standing right in front of each other, fixed place, push hands, I knock you over, the fight's over, right? No, don't just do it like that, right? Sometimes, okay, if you're gonna do push hands, if you're doing it with somebody who is proficient, add in some chin na. That's another thing. Practice your chin na drills. Because, believe it or not, chin na, joint locking, Tai Chi is a grappling art. Then, when you get good at that, add in throws. right? Throws. That's another thing. Tai Chi has a lot of throws. Learn to basically be dynamic enough to add in those elements. Then there's inch power, the 1-inch punch. Tai Chi is best used in the clinch. You usually can't rear back and throw a punch like this when you're up close and personal like this. I refer to folks like Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran to me is one of the greatest close quarters boxers I have ever seen. This man will come in on you. He'll be locking up with you. He'll roll your defense aside, your fist, and then he'll pummel you, right? I love watching him. I love watching his fights with Sugar Mosley, Sugar Ray Leonard, right? Ali 2.0. Speed versus indomitable warrior spirit. Great thing to watch. Okay, so you have your silk rilling, you have your standing meditation, you have your forms, right? You also have push hands and chin na and throws. You have basically wrestling, shuai jiao. And this is good so you can adapt to the changing circumstances of a fight. But a fight in itself isn't going to start out with you guys locked up like this doing No, that's not how it works. It's not going to start with you guys wrestling. No, sometimes you got to be able to close the distance on somebody, right? So you can box. Go fight a boxer, right? Go fight a kickboxer. You got to go deal with the changing circumstances of combat from different types of fighters. Don't just fight somebody at your school. Don't just fight somebody in your style. Fight all types of people, right? And do that. One, you've got to adjust to force. You're not going to block every punch. You're not going to stop every kick. You're not going to be able to reverse every throw. You have to develop that sensitivity. You have to be able to do that. Because where your form and technique fails, your athleticism will come into play, believe it or not, right? I don't just start doing Tai Chi and I'm Chen Chao Wang or Feng Zichang or Grandmaster Johnny Lee, all the other grand ancient dragons here and beyond, right? I'm not coming out the gate looking like Tiger Chen in Man of Tai Chi. That's not how it works. But if you do these things, you do your standing meditation. You learn to relax. You find your synergy. You learn to do your silk rilling consistently. You find your alignment. You do your forms, constantly. All that. And then you fight. You fight people in your style. You do the push. You do stand-up push hands. You do push hands where you go back and forth. You do push hands with one hand. You do push hands with two hands. You do push hands and you add a little bits of chin na in there. You do push hands and then you add in inch power. You do push hands, you add inch power, chin na, and throws. You do push hands when you're on your knees like they do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? You can do it on the ground. Then you go out, you fight people, but even before that, you also work on your athleticism, right? Yang Luchan, the patriarch of Yang style, was known as Yang the Invincible. This puny little dude in 19th century China was going around, whooping up on many opponents in basically underground fights. Well, I wouldn't even call them underground. They're just fights that, the people would stage, people would bet on. Pugilism, right? So and this little Chinese dude would win. Well, what was it about him that allowed him to do it? For one, you got to consider life back then in 19th century China. A lot of people, most of the general population that weren't royalty or whatever, they were farmers, peasants. And even if they weren't peasants, even if they were businessmen and women and artisans or whatever, they still lived a much more physical existence than they do now, right? If you've ever done farm work, one of the people I hate dealing with, one of the types of people I hate dealing with in a fight, or anybody who's worked on a farm, because they have a natural strength. You have to, adjust to them being strong. If they don't know how to move and relax and use all the principles, then you might have a shot. But more often than not, they're gonna bum rush you and Incredible Hulk your ass, right? So, but even Yang Luchan, as he's a tiny man, he still did farm work, so he was in shape. You still have to be in shape to a degree to just for general survival purposes, because chances are you're gonna miss, you're gonna get tired. When you get tired, especially like, okay, me and my boy Devin, you've seen him in the videos, does a Wing Chun. We'd fight for like, the longest we fought is like 10 rounds. 10 rounds at 3 minutes a round. Those later rounds, your form gets sloppy, you make mistakes, and this is when you get hit. He's bloodied my nose twice. But one of the things that has kept me in the fight was indomitable warrior spirit and, good eating. I try to eat fruits and vegetables, lift weights, skip rope, run, do calisthenics, pull-ups, sit-ups, what have you. So then I could at least keep myself in the game, like, oh, I'm not completely exhausted, because when I'm completely exhausted, I cannot intelligently defend myself. This is when a TKO happens. So if you're not fighting, if you're not learning the basics of slipping a punch and dealing with somebody throwing, because the thing about, i.e. the Tao of Jeet Kune Do and the Tao of Kung Fu, Bruce Lee said it best. There's only one way to fight. I have 2 hands, 2 feet, 2 eyes, right? I can only do so many moves, so many different ways, right? A punch is a punch and a kick is a kick. So I can block your jab like this, do a halfway single arm circle, come in, right? Stick you with the jab. You do all of that and you do it consistently. You fight, you have your form, you have your synergy, you have your alignment, you have all of that, and you do it consistently, and you make yourself athletic. You can go into the Lei Tai mat, you can go to the octagon, you can go to the ring, but you remember, you are playing by their rules, right? But that doesn't mean your style won't work. Your style will work just fine. It's you who has to make it work. And so with that in mind, I leave you with that advice. Get out there and train. No matter what style you do, train hard. Don't be afraid to fight anybody. And with that said, be water, my friends. Turtle Sage, signing out.